I'm Meg Loeks, and I'm a storyteller. My body of work is really centered around the home. I am really drawn to everyday spaces, ordinary moments, and I like to kind of elevate that a little bit as well. So I really focus in on the season of life that I'm in, which feels often really messy and kind of chaotic with 5 children who range from 14 years old all the way to 4 years old. And so I really hone in on that. I create portraits within my home and also my studio. I have a small studio space in my barn, actually, on my property. But a lot of my portraits are, again, everyday spaces, ordinary moments that are kind of elevated. I like to bring in humor within my work because I also feel like, I don't know, parenting is kind of humorous. Kids are really funny. So I do hone in on that. I also really love color. I'm drawn to color. And I feel like the older I get, the more colorful I get. Um, and that's a big inspiration for me as well. Um, I have a lot of photo series too that kind of keep me going, keep me inspired. And they range from a 90s photo series that I have to another photo series centered around my chickens. Uh, we have, I think, like 35 chickens. It's ever evolving and growing. I kind of have a problem with chickens and constantly getting them. I love them, and so do my kids. And so I do center a lot of my work too around our pets because our chickens are our pets. I have dogs, cat, and so I bring them into my portraiture a lot. But I have a photo series centered around chickens and chicken idioms and adages, actually. And I have other various photo series, and so a lot of my work is centered around that as well. Uh, but yeah, it's been interesting to see how like my work has changed and evolved over the years because I feel like when my kids were younger, it was very much different. It was kind of focused on me just kind of following them around with my camera. But as they've gotten older, I haven't been photographing them as much, and I think that's kind of the natural way of things, the natural course, with them being in school and activities, and just not wanting to, yeah, I don't know, share them online as much. So I have been doing a lot of self portraits over the past several years, and I have found it to be extremely therapeutic. I've gone through some kind of hard things and challenges in my life, and with my son being sick, and he was diagnosed with leukemia twice, actually. So we've had that hurdle, and also my husband being deployed at times, being away from home. Self portraiture for me, again, is therapeutic, but it's also self care. So time with my camera in general, I feel like it is self care. So it's been really um, just amazing for me to just have that time with my camera.
When as you've built this body of work, have you always uh, used the same camera body, or where'd you start with camera ecosystem, and where are you now?
So I actually started with Canon, and the sole reason is because my dad had a Canon. So with my dad having a Canon, it's just like that's what I knew, right? That's what I grew up seeing. So I got a Canon, and for years and years, I had my Canon. I love my Canon. Uh, but I eventually started to look at Sony, heard so many incredible things, especially about their focus. And so I started looking at Sony, and then mirrorless happened, right? And that really interested me. So I ended up getting a Sony. I had my first Sony was the A7R4. Loved that camera. And so I was using that plus my other Canon. So I had two bodies that I was using. Uh, and then the Sony A1 II came out, and I just have heard so many good things about the Sony A1. And I sat on it for a while, kind of debating whether I wanted to make the switch because, it's a big deal, right? And it's a big investment. Um, but again, I was always so impressed with Sony, and so I ended up making the switch and got my Sony A1 too. And I have been so incredibly happy with this camera body, especially with the focus. I mean, that never fails me, right? But there's so many amazing features with it that I love. The coloring, which is so important within my work, has been huge. I love the rich colors that I get from this camera. And it's incredibly fast, which when I'm photographing my kids, that's especially important because obviously kids are like crazy fast, moving around, unpredictable. So I've really enjoyed my body. I've had it for I think 6 months now, and absolutely love it.
You mentioned color as one of the benefits of Sony in this series that we're looking at now is full of color. So set this series up for me. Like, where did you get inspiration? How did you get from, concept to getting ready to execute?
So this 90s series that I have, every start of the year, so once December wraps up and we begin the new year, I start a new photo series. So I kind of brainstorm, what can I focus on this year? Something new that I haven't done before. I am all about nostalgia, just huge on it. And I know I mentioned earlier that a lot of my work focuses on the home, but it also heavily focuses on nostalgia. It's a big driver in my work. And I just started, I don't know if I saw something that was 90s themed, but I was like, I need to like hone in on that. I think I'm going to start a 90s series because I knew that I had a lot of stuff that I kept from my childhood. Again, all about nostalgia. So I keep a lot of stuff. Um, and it was so cool to kind of like uh go back and like look through some of the things that I kept. I have, some stuff in boxes, some stuff in my hope chest that my dad built me. And so I started going through it, and it was so interesting to see some of the things that I kept that meant something to me, like some really random things. But I was like, these are all amazing things that I can use in this series. So I think one of the beautiful things about this series is that I haven't had to buy a lot of stuff because I kept a lot of these things from my childhood, like my CDs, my entire CD collection. I'm big into music. I grew up in a really musical family. And so I have like all these things. And one of the things I also really wanted to focus on in the series, and I've noticed that I do this a lot within my work, when I do a photo series, I really strive to make sure that each portrait is a little different, shot in like a different environment with a slightly like different color scheme. So when I'm doing this series, I always try to make sure that every portrait that I create is in a slightly different space. Or if it's not in a different space, I make it look like it's different. And I also try to have a different color palette. And I really try to bring in a lot of color because when you look back at the 90s, it was colorful, it was messy. And when I say messy, there's like cords everywhere. I just remember my childhood bedroom, just like so much stuff, so much clutter all over the floor. My parents always telling me and like yelling at me to like clean my room. It was just an absolute mess. So I really wanted to kind of like hone in on that and focus on uh, those kind of like memories and those things from my childhood.
You mentioned your room and it being messy. You've got this image in here that is what I would assume it's your room. Break this down for me. Like there's a lot of things that you could have in a hope chest, but kind of take me through, you know, like how'd you put this all together?
Mhm.
Everything from like set design to lighting this and post. Like how do we do this?
When I was creating this series, actually a lot of these portraits were created within my studio. I designed my studio in such a way that it looks like, it's a space within my home. It's definitely like focused on like set building. So I have each wall painted differently within my studio. So I have options. I didn't want to use backdrops or anything like that. Some of the shots that are within my home, but very, very little. Most of it's within my studio. And a lot of this stuff, again, pulled from what I already had. The funny part of this is that there's also quite a bit that I borrowed from my kids because I feel like the 90s are coming back in style, right? Which is so, I don't know, it's so weird. It also makes me feel really old. But like the lava lamp that I have, that's actually one of my kids. The pillows, the bean bag, that's also my kids. Um, yeah, so there's quite a few things here that are also pulled from what my kids have. There are some things that I had to find uh, local antique shops. I do love to go antiquing, and so I'll go there often and see if I can find things like VHS tapes and stuff like that. And some things I find online too, of course. Um, like I have this awesome vintage light bright that I found. I wanted the old light bright. I wanted to make sure that it was like the one from the 90s, like my childhood, and not the current one because that one looks different. They've changed it a little bit. So I really wanted to make sure that a lot of these details um, were accurate. And some of them aren't, like even some of the snacks and stuff that I include Doritos and pop and stuff is current. It's not like that's not vintage, but in general, most of the stuff you're seeing is truly vintage or very close to it. So when I'm styling this, when I'm creating these portraits, I spend so much time on them. I have an idea in mind. Usually, it starts with one proper item. So, for example, a TV or a Game Boy or those Apple computers from like the late 90s that uh, had colors, so like the different like I think there's like teal and blue and pink. And so I start with one specific prop, specific item, and then I build from that. And typically that's also that prop or that item is also the start of my color palette. So I think about like what colors are also going to work well with this one item. And so I build really slowly. I bring in a lot of items, style my frame, take tons of test shots, move things around, keep bringing more stuff in. And it can honestly, it could take hours. And most of the time, what I do too is I set up this scene the day before I actually shoot so that I give myself a lot of time to just kind of play, experiment. Lighting is also a huge thing to kind of set the mood. Um, and it's also really important for color, again, because when I think about the 90s, I think about like how colorful it was. So I do like to, when I'm setting up my lights, I like to bring in a lot of like gels and create some more like a saturated color and enhance the overall mood.
You use color in such an intentional way. It feels like a strength of yours. What other strengths do you have as a photographer, and how's it helped you?
Some of my other strengths besides color, I would have to say are, just looking, at the details and including very intentional, purposeful like details within my frame. I spend a lot of time on that. I spend a lot of time on including things that mean something to me that might also, of course, mean something to the viewer. I really want people to also kind of like look at my images here and resonate with it in some way, uh, like I do. And so I spend a lot of time with, intentionally picking certain items or certain objects and carefully placing them in certain areas. I also feel like one of my other strengths is lighting. Um, I really want to make sure that I have, you know, incredible mood and atmosphere within my frame, but I also spend a lot of time making sure that I have the right kind of lighting that highlights these details too. So I want to guide the viewer through my frame. I want to guide the viewer first to typically like myself, the subject, and then to other parts of my frame. I do like to really fill my frame with a lot of details. And so with being a maximalist, that can be kind of tricky because the frame is busy, right? So lighting is extremely important here because uh, it's going to, if I'm shaping the light right, it's going to really guide the viewer uh, through my frame in a way that I want them to go. So typically, again, to me first, and then maybe to some other really important details within my frame.
You do such a good job of dropping Easter eggs. The more you look, you kind of the more you see with your images. What advice would you give to somebody trying to create something similar to this 90s, whether it's from a broad spectrum of concept to the technical side? Like what one piece of advice would you give that's the most important for someone trying to create this?
I think the biggest tip I can give, the most important tip I can give in regard to creating something like this is, uh, you know, s- spending time with it. I think we live in a society in a world where, I don't know, busy is really glorified. And so what I do is I spend quite a bit of time planning. Uh, I have a running shot list within my planner. I have this planner that I have at my side all the time, and that helps me stay motivated, but also really organized. So it starts there for me, and then I start looking into what I have, what I might need to look into ordering or buying or looking to get. Um, and again, I mentioned this earlier, but I love to set up the day before a shoot so that I can spend time experimenting because these things take time. It's not like this quick process. A lot of times when I'm setting these things up, I'm making a lot of mistakes. I can't get the lighting quite right off the bat. So I'm taking, these test shots, making micro adjustments and tweaks, taking another test shot, making another adjustment, and getting it the way I want it to be because this series is really important to me. And if I'm going to spend all this time, planning and styling and experimenting with the lighting, I want to make sure that it's perfect, that I'm proud of it. So my biggest advice is to spend time. I think, I don't know, personally for me, I make the biggest mistakes, the most mistakes when I rush it. So for me, I really want to think things through and take my time with it. And so I think that's the biggest advice I have for somebody looking to kind of create something like this.
Great advice. We could all use a little bit more time.
Yeah.
Uh, Looking at these images, it leaves me wanting more. Is there anything you're working on now that's kind of new and exciting, or what are you doing right now that is kind of feeding your soul?
This series is ongoing. I have a huge list. It's funny when I started this series, I only had like a few ideas and it's really expanded. And I think that's the beautiful thing about photo series. You start something, you're like, I've got this idea, and then as you start working through it, more ideas kind of like pop up. And it's not going to go on forever. None of my photo series do. At some point, I kind of lose interest, or I'm like, okay, let's move on to something different. I've always been this way for years and years, but I don't know, there's something so beautiful about photo series. I think it's so important to spend time to shoot something for yourself. Um, I think it helps you grow as an artist too. So yeah, I've got a lot of ideas on my list for this. Things like I don't know. One of the things that comes to mind is there was this toy when I was younger called Skip It, and I absolutely loved that toy. I think it was one of my favorite toys, and I think it was really big when I was like in second or third grade. So that's one of the things I have on my list. I have so much more. Uh, but I again really kind of hone in on, okay, what is the one item I want to focus on, like the one prop from like my childhood, um, that I really loved or cherished. Another thing is like Pogs. I remember Pogs too. So all those things come to mind, and I'm like, okay, let's create something centered around that. And then again, I kind of just spend time like thinking about where can I shoot this, like within my home or my yard or my studio, and what's the color scheme going to be. And again, I kind of look at that item first, like what color is it, and then kind of build off that. And like that's again the start of the color palette.
What do you want to leave people with today?
What I want to leave people with today is I know that the photography world is really saturated, and I know that social media has changed so drastically, but I think one of the beautiful things about the change in social media and the lack of engagement that's often, kind of happening these days, because uh, reels, right, are like this huge, there's a huge push for reels, and there's a huge push for all these other things. But I don't know, my heart still is with still photographs. And the one piece of advice I want to give is to make sure that you're doing something for yourself, especially during busy season. Like when I think about fall and I think about photographers, like just being slammed October, November. Um, it's hard because I feel like we kind of lose our reason why and why we're a photographer in the first place. So I think it's really important to carve out days for yourself every now and then, like clear your calendar for that day and just play, just experiment, have no expectation, other than maybe you're going to try something new, try some sort of like lighting technique or this idea that you're kind of excited about, and see what happens. It's so important, just I think, to kind of bring back the spark, but also to help you grow as an artist.